Hello, my name is Kinlock and I love to watch musicals. That is hopefully also why you are here, because you also like musicals. I often go to see shows and then I have lots of thoughts and I want to talk about it. And so that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to make a video with all my thoughts about a show I just saw. It was a show called The Phantom of the Opera. The Phantom of the Opera! You've heard of it, you know it, you love it. It's been around your entire life, right? It just has. It's been everywhere and we can't get away from it. And so you've just got to lean in at some point, right? You've got to just love it or else. Now, I do love The Phantom of the Opera. I've seen it several times. I have seen it at different times in my life. The first time I saw it on stage, I already knew the music quite well, but the first time I saw it on stage, I was a teenager, and I must say, I was shocked by how much, like, magic sort of stuff is in it, like the stage effects. And the Phantom actually does come across as very, like, is he a ghost? He's creepy, like, what's going on here? Like, who is he? And they achieve this by, stage effects, like he kind of goes like this and then fire pops out of the stage, or he goes and just disappears instantly. Like, stuff that's kind of magical to see on stage, and I'd never seen anything like it when I was a teenager. I was just like, I'm not even sure I'm following the story, but just like visually, everything is crazy, man. Wow. And that is a huge part of the Phantom of the Opera's legacy. So this new production, they've changed a few things. It was restaged a few years ago for a UK tour, and this is what we're seeing now. So it's a non-replica production. Sounds the same, looks different. What have they changed? Why was it worth it? I just want to highlight a few little things that have changed to kind of give an impression of what you'd be in for if you go see this new production. All right, so as I'm saying, like, a big part of what makes this production what it is the stage magic. That's what keeps people coming back again and again. They always talk about the chandelier. I've always thought the chandelier is so underwhelming. Like, I've seen it done different ways and it's always just a bit like, it's pretty. It's not that dramatic. Yeah, but the people just disappearing randomly and appearing, and like mirrors that suddenly, you can see your reflection and then suddenly there's a different face in the mirror, and there's all these stage effects in the original Phantom that are quite mind-blowing and cool to look at, right? In Act 1 of this show, you will not get any of that. And so I really got a different sense of who the Phantom was, because he wasn't pulling all these magic tricks all the time. He wasn't as scary. He was more of just like, he's just a guy who has found some catacombs under the Paris Opera House and like realizes if he lives there, he doesn't have to pay rent in Paris. Seems like a good deal. And so he comes across much more like just a normal dude rather than a creepy weirdo. This could also be because he's not wearing his iconic hat and cape. He just is like, here is my hair, here is my jacket. And like, we all know that creepy weirdos wear capes and cloaks and hats. Like, it's essential. So this new version of the Phantom is less creepy. This seems to be intentional to kind of make the love triangle of it all a bit more realistic. Like, you've got the Phantom and you've got Raoul, and then in the middle there's Christine, and she's like, who will I choose? My problem with that is that, like, if you're making it realistic, like, what is the point of Phantom of the Opera? Like, we don't see Phantom of the Opera to see something that's realistic, honey. We go there to see drama. This is like some melodramatic Victorian Gothic mystery. That's what we're wanting. And if she's just like, should I go with Peter or Paul? It's like, we don't care. You should be going, oh, do I go with this, like, man who casts a spell over me and, like, teaches me to sing, but also, like, lives underground and is very strange and like keeps threatening people and killing them? Or should I go with this aristocratic man who's like perfect, but you know, vanilla? Like, that's more of a contrast. When you've just got these two very normal guys, like, where's the drama in that? So I think it's a mistake to make the Phantom too normal. Another way that he comes across as too normal is that he is too often just like there visually on the ground with other people around. That doesn't happen in the original staging. He has like a voice that gets piped through the walls and stuff and you hear him, but if he ever appears, he's up, he's like secluded, he's distant. And that doesn't really happen in Act 1 of this show. Weirdly, it kind of does happen in Act 2, and like there's these moments where he's like speaking through a shadow or, you know, being all creepy and elusive then, but like it's too late. So that's strange, right? Okay, so one major difference. This is the first time that I just went, ooh, interesting staging happening right now. This is going to be cool. And there's this like really iconic moment when Christine first goes down into the Phantom's lair. She walks through a mirror because that's how you access lairs. And then there's like a blackout for like all of 2 or 3 seconds, and then suddenly these bridges appear on the stage, and like the Phantom and Christine are on this bridge, and then this other bridge appears and they're on this other bridge running across, and it's all done like supernaturally fast through the use of body doubles. It's very special. We don't get body doubles in this production. Instead, she goes through the mirror and then on rolls to the stage this enormous like castle kind of turret sort of thing, takes up like the whole stage, and they appear on the top of it and they sort of run along, and then they open like this door kind of windowy thing out of the cavern, which is then just going to have this sheer vertical drop, and it's like, oh no, where are they going to go next? And this magical staircase appears and they climb down that into the catacombs of the Paris Opera House. It was cool. I love a magic staircase that appears out of nowhere. I didn't see it coming. And I think that when these long-running shows just have the same look every day, all day for 35 years or so, it does lose that element of surprise. And it was nice to kind of be surprised by something a bit magical again. So I enjoyed this like staircase just appearing, and they descend down into the bowels of the building where his lair is, and then they get a little boat and they go to it. Unfortunately, the boat is not, it's not it. Like, compared to the iconic boat that they use in the original, it sort of looks like a clamshell, and it just like appears from the back, the middle of the stage, and then just, it's going through all this mist, and these candles are coming up through the floor. It's just like, what is happening? It's so like wild. Here it's just like they get to the bottom of the staircase and they're like, oh look, here's my little boat. And it's like, we are in Venice on a gondola. That'll be €3, please. It was very like anticlimactic, and the music that's happening at this point is so dramatic. There's a bit of a mismatch. Yeah, so we get to his lair, and again it's just like anticlimactic. It's just like, it doesn't look as creepy as what we're used to. There's no kind of cage kind of thing locking him in there. There's no mannequin wearing a wedding dress, which is so iconically creepy and great. Like, we want that in a Phantom. I do. And then the other thing that happens in this lair is like, there's a bit of a tussle back and forth between them, and she goes to sleep, but then later she pulls off his mask, and then that really sets him off. He just like freaks out and it's like, ah! And screams at her musically. And you know, we see this dark side of him, not the dark mysterious side, but the dark angry side. And like, ooh, you know, this guy is really someone to watch out for. They stage it differently in this production. He takes his own mask off while she's sleeping, and then basically she sort of wakes up and she's like, oh, hey dude, and then sees his face and he freaks out. Like, ah, how dare you? And it's like, how dare she what? How dare she wake up? Like, she didn't do anything. Why are you yelling at her? And sure, that is something that happens because misogyny, you know, women get yelled at by angry men in their lives when they haven't really done anything wrong. But at the same time, dramatically, it just makes more sense on stage if like there's an action that has caused this outburst. Yeah, sorry for wanting things to make sense, but that's me. Another thing that changed in this production, well, there's some really beautiful sets. So like they climb up to the roof of the building for All I Ask of You, the iconic love duet, lovey-dovey. And yeah, I think from memory in the original production, they sort of come out of the like a trap door, which is cool, but then they're just on the stage and it's all just quite bare and open, and there's like some stars or lights in the background, but not a whole lot. Whereas this has like a full-on backdrop of Paris at night, and it looks really cool. Like, it might not be technically that accurate as to what things would have looked like at night in the 1880s, because I don't know, this is like the day after electricity got introduced. They probably weren't leaving lights on or lights on all night. Nights on all night. But yeah, it just looks better, and they're on the roof with this like iconic sort of big imposing statue thing there. Normally there's a version of that statue like in the proscenium arch at the top of the theatre, but like this is kind of more imposing, I think, and so I enjoyed looking at it better. Unfortunately, they didn't really integrate it into the action better, because like there's this bit where like Christine senses that the Phantom's near, and this is the thing, like in the original production, whenever the Phantom's near, she knows, and she gets like a little cat with ears pricking up or something, and eyes as big as saucers, iconically, but that's more of a Sarah Brightman-ism maybe. And that doesn't really happen in this version, and so it's not, they're less psychically connected. So the love triangle thing is just less interesting because you don't see that really deep connection that the two of them have traditionally had. Like every time he's near, she just kind of becomes this other person, you know, under a spell. I mean, that's what we have in these old books and stories from the 1800s, right? You know, like, oh, women just swoon when there's a man around. Also corsets, they're probably swooning anyway. Yeah, so there's still this like, it's kind of the only moment this really happens. Normally in the original production, this happens quite a lot throughout the show. Like she's always just going, oh, the Phantom's nearby. Whereas this is sort of like the only time that she really does it. She's like, I think I heard something. And Raoul's like, I'll protect you. Oh, is he over here? Is someone over there? Oh, nope. And you're going, Raoul, like, there's a giant statue there. Like, look behind the statue. Look behind the statue, Raoul. It's behind you. It's just so stupid. He doesn't even look behind this statue, which is like the obvious place to look. And then as soon as they walk off stage, like the Phantom pops out from behind the statue, and we're like, of course he does. Like, we knew that was going to happen. It was just really stupid. And, you know, if we were painting the Phantom as this mysterious person a little bit more, then he could have looked behind the statue and not seen him, and then he still would have popped out and been there, and that could have, it still would have worked. I think we still would have bought it, that he looked but didn't see him. What we don't buy is that Raoul wouldn't even look behind the statue. It makes no sense. So there's that. Okay, that's Act 1, and that kind of covers like the differences within the characterization of these three main characters and why the love triangle is kind of given more focus, but to me actually doesn't make as much sense dramatically. But another thing I want to talk about was the staging of Masquerade, because Masquerade is like my favorite moment in the show. It opens Act 2 and everyone is like at this party and they've got incredible costumes on and they're dancing in this giant staircase, and it's just like visually a feast. The song itself is like, masquerade, paper faces on parade, masquerade, 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 masquerade. So like, there isn't really actually anything happening and the song goes on for ages, but visually it's so rich that it doesn't really matter. You don't need a plot for these few minutes. We can just enjoy the beautiful costumes, the stair choreography, and like the way that these orchestrations kind of like swell and they get bigger and smaller, and then they build to this really dramatic point where the Phantom appears at the top of the staircase and they're all like, who is this man? And he appears and he's got the most incredible costume with fascinating silhouette, like again, interesting hat. But his face is a skull. It's not just covered up with that sort of mask thingy. It's just like his whole face is a skull. Like it's just, I'm a skull now. He becomes Skeletor. It's crazy. And it's iconic and it's beautiful and it's interesting. In this production, we do not have a staircase. So we're just in a ballroom. And if I'm honest about it, it does make more sense to have a ball in a ballroom than it does to have a ball on a staircase. But it's not as interesting to look at. And costumes. What costumes? Like, basically the men are just wearing tuxedos with a little mask, and the women are just wearing pretty dresses with like a little mask of some kind. But it's like, wait, we want someone who's dressed up as half man, half woman. We want someone dressed as a monkey. We want the court jester and the drummer boy, and like, where are the interesting costumes? And we just don't have all this interesting stuff to look at. And so it kind of just makes the song a little bit like masquerade, 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 masquerade. And you're just like, I get it, masquerade. So like literally nothing happens. And then at the end of the song, the Phantom just walks through a door and he's wearing like a very boring thing, you know, no skull. So it's so underwhelming. And like, this is how we open Act 2. So I was just a little bit like, well, we all make choices, but that one was a real letdown for me. On the whole, I did enjoy the show. I do this all the time. I pick out things that I didn't really like and I talk about those, and people are like, oh, you hate theatre. I don't, it's not true. It's just, those are the things that like get stuck in my brain because I'm trying to work out, why did they do that? Like, how did they not know to fix that? But there's still so much in this show to love. The singing was just beautiful, especially from the guy who plays Raoul, whose name I don't know, and the guy who played the Phantom, who is Josh Pitterman, who is a name that some people have heard of. I think we saw the alternate Christine, and she seemed to be having like a bit of an off moment with her voice. It just wasn't great. It wasn't terrible. It was just like, and she wasn't really acting very well. It was just, everything was just like base level. There was not a lot of highs and lows. So didn't really rate Christine, but also I think that we saw the alternate actress. That shouldn't really matter, but kind of does, because it means they usually get less practice. So she might still be like finding her feet. Also though, I had a look at the production skit, the timetable for this production, and it looks like they're doing like 9 shows a week. So I saw it on a Sunday, which is, you know, the last day of the week before they get a day off on Monday. And like, if they're doing 9 shows and then this is the end of that week for them, then sure, okay, maybe you are just like dead on your feet. Like, yeah, I can forgive some lackluster performances, but hers was the only one. Everyone else was actually fantastic. So sorry, Christine. All of this to say, if you like the Phantom of the Opera, you will probably enjoy just seeing it done differently, because we've seen it done the same way for so long. I really enjoyed new visuals, and some of them worked better than others. They were actually all stunning. Even the ballroom for Masquerade, I thought it looked gorgeous. It just wasn't as interesting as having a stairwell for people to dance on. But it was still gorgeous. It was just different. And I really enjoyed this big turret that comes on and gets used in different ways. So that was me. I enjoyed the visuals. Some of the other changes for dramatic reasons didn't have the same payoff. But there you go. He's here. The Phantom of the Opera. Ah!